And I think that the beauty of having both a commissioned salon, but with the freedoms of booth rent, means that we're able to take what's good from both sides. And then it ultimately gives the stylist a lot of freedom, even more freedom than they even have being a booth renter.
Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I'm a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you love. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. Welcome to this week's Elevate podcast. We are talking to Destroy the Hairdresser coach, Joy LaMay. Joy is also a commissioned salon owner. She owns a commissioned salon in the state of California. So we're excited to talk to Joy today and talk about how she has her commission salon, coaching, and all of the good things that she does inside of our industry. Joy, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Hi, Patricia. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Joy LaMay, and I am a salon owner. I am a coach for Destroy the Hairdresser, and I'm also a mom and a wife and all the fun things.
So you started working with Destroy the Hairdresser coach several years ago, and throughout the process, you decided you wanted to open your own salon. Now, when you first made the decision, you wanted to originally open a rental salon because you're in the state of California, and the state of California does things a little bit differently. So one, I want you to talk about what the limitations are in California for commissioned salon owners. And then what made you decide to scratch that first plan and open a commission salon in the first place?
Great question. So a little bit of a backstory. I started doing hair in 2003, and I went straight into booth rental. I had interviewed at a couple of different apprentice programs, but it was the typical 2 years or up to 2 years, maybe longer. And I remember just kind of thinking I just want to start, making money and getting into hair and getting on with my life. And so looking back, I can probably go, that might have not been the best, the course that I could have taken, but ultimately it did lead me to, I did start to assist a really wonderful gentleman, Michael Nelson Cox in San Diego. But he gave me the freedom of, I would assist for him for a little bit, and then I also could take clients on the side. And so that really gave me the opportunity to kind of go into business for myself and start working on building my clientele. A couple years later, my husband and I, we moved to Los Angeles. And again, I just started working at booth rental places. It was what was always really comfortable for me. And even though it did have its limitations, I always felt the best doing it. And then I did end up working at a commission salon for about 2 years. And those 2 years actually ended up being some of the craziest years of my life in terms of, I actually got hit by a car walking across the street. I ended up breaking my back in a few places. I had internal bleeding. I had a long road of recovery ahead of me. And then during the year of my recovery, I actually even had heart surgery. I had some other health things that I needed to go through. And then my husband actually, almost a year from my accident, he tore an artery in his neck and had 2 strokes because of it. And then when he came home from the hospital after having the strokes, we found out I was pregnant with our second child. So it was this really wild, 2.5 years of just chaos. And I actually look at while I was at that commission salon, because I was at a commission salon, I was part of a team where my clients could go and see people who I trusted. I was able to, because I was a W-2 employee, I was able to qualify for financial, assistance like disability and family paid leave, all things that I wouldn't have had if I was a booth renter. So I really see like the universe really put me in this position so I could see the benefits of being a commission employee. After I had my son, that was really when I had the desire to have my own salon was really strong and was really like, okay, enough messing around. I knew that this was on my heart ever since since I was a child. I always knew that I was a business person. I always knew I wanted to open a business, run a business, to a bigger extent than I felt as a booth renter. And so I did leave that commission salon and I did go to booth renting, which was a really good choice for me at the time. And so when I thought about opening a salon, I never thought about opening a commission salon. Never, ever, ever. And when I was coming back from my maternity leave from having my son was right around the time when a lot of laws were changing in California around commission salons. And so even the commission salon that I had been working at, they were also starting to change because of these laws. But I really saw that some of the changes that they were making weren't really, they were just reacting to the laws. They weren't really kind of thinking like, well, how do we work with these laws and actually make things better for our stylists? And so that is kind of why I started to move. That's why I went to a booth rent salon. And it was also better for me and my family at the time as well. But I was seeing a lot of these salon owners who owned commission salons say, oh, these laws are changing. Commission is now illegal in California. And I think that that has been a very prevalent myth and a very prevalent story that salon owners and people in the industry in California have been saying just year after year after year. And so because that's what I'd always heard, and because I had always mostly been a booth renter, I thought I would open a booth rent salon. Like I just thought that's what you do in California. That's what's legal. I knew how it worked. I knew the ins and outs of it. And I was confident that, it would work out really well for me. You mentioned that I was in coaching. So right before I opened my salon, I was really just kind of really trying anyway to open a salon. And I had an opportunity. It passed me by. And now I can look back and say, thank God that didn't work out. But at the time, I was just like really struggling with this idea of having this desire to open a salon, thinking that it was going to be in this one specific way. And, but also really struggling with my own, dealing with all of the trauma that I had just gone through in those past years, going through, having to heal. And then also times were changing. It was about 2019. Things that had been going on in the industry for the last 50 years just weren't really working anymore in 2019. And so I kind of got to this point where I was like, I need help. So I had come across a podcast. It was called Bleached at the time, but we all know it now as Destroy the Hairdresser. And I loved the idea of everything that they were saying was all the things that I had been feeling, but I didn't have the words for it quite yet. I didn't have the thought, like the system that these two people were talking about, Sid and David. And so when I had been in a lot of other programs, I was really trying to run this race that I thought was before me. And so I decided, so when I started listening to their podcast and they mentioned, you can call us, like you can talk to us. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I could call them and talk to them. Like, this is crazy. So I did. And I hired Sid as my coach. And I got off the phone with her on our first discovery call. And I remember going in and talking to my husband, and he was like, I go in and he goes, it's like, how did it go? And I'm like, he's like, what'd she say? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what she just said. I don't know what she was talking about, but all I knew was like, I have to hire this person to be my coach. And through a lot of changes that happened over the year, to my business, to my personal life, I really started taking personal responsibility for how my business was being run, how I was living my life. It started to open my mind to what are the possibilities and what do I actually want my salon to look like, and not just aesthetically, but like, what do I want it to actually feel like? What do I want the culture to be like? How do I want it to be different? Because I've been in I was also an educator for a big brand. And so I would go into salons, 2, 3 times a week to different salons. And they always felt the same to me. And I was just like, how do I make something different? And for a while I did think maybe it is, the color on the wall, or the way that it's the way that it looks. And I think for a lot of us who go into salon ownership, I think that that is a really big part. We want to play the music that we want to play, and we want to have it look the way that we want it to look, and we want it to be comfortable for what we think is comfortable. But ultimately, what I started to discover was that it was part of it is, yeah, I want to be able to make and design a place that looks how I want it to look. But what I was aching for so long was for it to actually function different than any other salon that I'd been a part of or that I had seen as an educator. And so when I was working with Sid and we were kind of fleshing out all these details, and I started to learn about like how a commission salon can run like a booth rental salon, and we can actually have the benefits of both. That's when my wheels started kind of to turn. But I remember telling her, like, it's impossible to do commission in California. And she was like, well, that could be just a story you're telling yourself. I want you to dig deeper in what could that look like. So I actually started to read the law for myself, which is something that I tell all my students to do now whenever they think that well, that's how it is in my state or in my city. This is how it should run, or in my area. I'm like, look at the law, like go and read what the law states. How does it, like, what are the actual parameters that it's telling you that you have to function by? And then see how your salon can work within those parameters. So I started to do, again, research on the laws, what they mean. And then I eventually found a lawyer who really started to help me understand the law. And then knowing what I knew about how we want our salons to function at Story the Hairdresser, and talking to my lawyer and like seeing how perfectly they matched up. And I was actually just like blown away, like, whoa, this can actually work. And this could actually be wildly different than anything that we've ever seen before, at least for me, that I've ever seen before in California. I started my career in San Diego, and, I'm here in Los Angeles now. And, just from all of the people that I've met, all of the people that I've seen and salons that I've seen, I'm just going like, whoa, this is actually different. So that had been something that I'd been craving for so long. And now I saw the path to actually making it possible. And then at that point, it was like, all right, I'm ready to go. Like, just find me a white box and I'm ready to go. And so never in my million years of doing hair did I ever think that I would be a commissioned salon owner. And yet here I am, and it freaking rules. It's awesome. And so I don't think I could, I don't think it would have been half as good as doing something different. And so I'm incredibly grateful that I'm here. And now I'm passionate about letting other salons in California know that commission is legal in California. There is a very legal path to owning a commission salon, and that the laws that we have are actually beneficial for the salon owner and the stylist, and that everybody can win by having a commission salon in California.
Wondering how I keep my business systemized? It's all thanks to Kajabi. Kajabi is a versatile platform that allows me to keep everything in one place, like my website, courses, forms, email marketing, my podcast, and so much more. It's easily mine and my team's favorite software for salon owners. To try Kajabi for yourself for 30 days, visit the link in the show notes.
So it's your mission to spread the word, which I love. What do you think the biggest benefit of having a commission salon over a rental structure is? I know for you, with your benefit, when you were going through all that stuff as an employee, you had lots of things that kind of covered the experiences that you were going through. But from a salon owner's standpoint, what is a benefit for you as an owner having a commission over a rental?
That's a really good question, because you're right. I did see the benefit as being an employee when I was in a commission salon. And so I got to see that part. And I love that that is a benefit for the people who are now my employees. As a salon owner, and this is something that I had even noticed when I was a booth renter, was noticing kind of lack of standards or the inability to really hold people to certain standards. As a booth rent salon, you're kind of hand tied with certain, you're kind of hand tied with certain things that you wish you could do, but you can't because you're a landlord. And yes, you can still encourage your team, be a support for your team, but you're really not there to really help them grow their business. You're not there to say, okay, how can I help support you in growing your business? How can we work together to grow you and support you and reach your specific goals? There's really isn't that kind of support at a booth rent salon. And so I think that for one of the things that I am really passionate about is clean beauty. Being a vegan myself and working so many years with some really crazy toxic chemicals, I knew that if I were to open a booth rent salon, I wouldn't have been able to tell people what they could and could not use. Or, I'm really passionate about having genderless pricing, having transparent pricing, having gratuity not even part of the conversations that we have with our clients. And so I knew that if I had a booth rent salon, I wouldn't have been able to, instill any of those values into my space. And like I said, I've been to so many salons. I've worked in so many salons. I've taught in so many salons that I wanted something to be different. And if you want something to be different, you have to be the one that's the leader who's in control of what that different looks like. And so for me, I knew that if I were to have a booth rent salon, I wouldn't have been able to have any of the control that I wanted to have in the business. I think that there's a lot of booth rent salons out, at least here in California, that I hear about and that I've seen, where they want it to function like a commission salon. They want to tell people how to price. They want to tell people when they can and cannot raise their prices. They want to be able to determine the products that you use, the color line that you use. And as a booth renter, I've always been like, you cannot tell me any of those things. And booth rent salon owners should not be able to tell their booth renters how to run their business. And so for me, I wanted to be able to say, here are these parameters, these are the values that our salon has. But then within that, there is the freedom of pricing. There is the freedom of raising your prices when you need to, the freedom of saying yes or no to a client. So again, I was able to kind of really look and see, okay, what are the things that I do want to say, this is a value for this salon? And then the things that I wanted to be able to say, but within all of these things, there is a lot of freedom. And I think that the beauty of having both a commissioned salon, but with the freedoms of booth rent, means that we're able to take what's good from both sides. And then it ultimately gives the stylist a lot of freedom, even more freedom than they even have being a booth renter. And so for me, it's really cool to see booth renters come and work at my salon and go like, wow, I don't have to do all that admin work that I was doing. I don't have to worry about paying my taxes. I don't have to worry about the self-employment tax. I don't have to worry about going on vacation and still having to pay for booth rent. Or if something, if my kid is sick or something happens or there's an accident, I'm not having to think about that I have to pay for booth rent while I'm gone. So these are all of the benefits that I see as a salon owner now that I'm able to give to my stylist, but that I'm also able to give to myself by having a salon that fits my values, and the things that I'm passionate about. I'm able to instill those into my space.
I think that's super powerful. And that is the whole reason why we open our own salons, is because we have a vision and we have an idea of what kind of mark we want to make in the industry. And I think now more than ever, like a personal brand and a business brand is something that is needed to actually stand out. And with the way that consumers buy, like they want to buy with a purpose. So with your salon, like using clean products, using vegan products, like these are things that are unique to you and your brand. And that's the standard that you can hold because you are a commissioned salon, which I think is something that's really powerful for you and for our industry. And you're right. A lot of rental salon owners do want to control their team. And you can't. You're a landlord. So if you want those controls, then you should really think about switching over the way that you do your business so that you can have those standards and you can really develop that vision that you had for your business when you first opened. I think a lot of rental salon owners, they say that they don't want to like micromanage people or manage people or they don't want to do the hard stuff. But in reality, you have to do all those things anyway, no matter what way you are structured in your business. So
for sure.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody who is currently rental and has been toying with the idea of doing commission, but feels like it's impossible? What is like one tangible thing besides setting up a call with you and coaching with you? What's a tangible thing that they can start really looking at or thinking about doing to make that switch happen?
So I know that you're always saying it too. Know your numbers, right? So you need to kind of have a really good hard look at what you have to offer, and then also what are your values that are non-negotiables for you. So when I have students who are wanting to make that transition, I always start with like, what are your values? Like, what are the things that you want to hold fast to and that are non-negotiables, so that if somebody wants to stay in your salon who was a booth renter, that they know what the non-negotiables are. When you go to hire people and they're kind of come into your salon, they also know what the non-negotiables are, really starting with those values. And then, like I said, knowing your numbers, knowing how many people you have the capacity for. If you're transitioning into commission, talk to your accountant, ask them what your commission rate should be. At DTH, we do have kind of a window where we think is a good place to start. But really talking to your accountant about like how little you should be charging, how much the commission rate should be. These are all things that we kind of need to know before making this decision. And then it goes into consciousness. What is your consciousness going into making this decision? Are we making it hastily, or are we doing all of the pre-work that we need to do before we tell our team so that the transition is smooth? And then also like knowing our emotional intelligence and be ready for the changes that are going to happen. You're going to have people who rent from you who don't like the change. And so we have to be prepared mentally and spiritually and emotionally ready for those types of conversations to have. And then last thing is to know the laws around your city and your state so that you're doing everything above board. We do not, I never am going to encourage anybody to do something that is not a legal path, which a lot of commission salons in California are trying to do. They do illegal 1099s. I've even heard where you're a 1099 employee and it's a 40-60 split, or so the salon is getting 60, you're getting 40. And then also on top of it, you're having to pay for color. So I hear a lot of just misinformation happening. So if you are a salon owner who wants to go to commission, really know what the laws are. And if you are a stylist in California, know what the laws are surrounding your employment, because it might be okay right now, nothing's really happened, but you don't want to get hit in the face later with the IRS. You don't want to all of a sudden go to work and the salon is shut down because they've been found to be, working illegally. Knowing the laws and then making a plan, having a strategy to make sure that everything is being taken care of and that it's being done in the most critical thinking way that we can do it. And then enjoying the process, about learning about yourself while you're going through the process, learning about the salon business, about the laws, about your state, about your employees, and just enjoying the process. That even though it might be hard, there's so many lessons to learn along the way about yourself, and that it can actually be a beautiful experience when we look at it that way.
Yeah, it's not just about accomplishing the thing, but it's about growing and learning through the process that makes it worthwhile.
For sure.
So how can people work with you if they would like to have some support during this change?
So first way I would say is to DM me on Instagram. If you are like, oh my gosh, this girl is saying all the things that I've been thinking and mulling around in your head and you're like ready to go, you can DM me and I can send you my link to sign up with Coaching for Me immediately. If you want to know a little bit more about that coaching process, you can still DM me, but you can also go to destroythehairdresser.com and sign up for a discovery call and get a little bit more backstory, a little bit more info. If you need a little bit more support and need some more questions answered. But I'm always available on my DMs as well to answer questions and hopefully, put you in the right direction.
And what is the last thing you want to share before we end today's podcast?
No matter who you are or how many times you've been through changes in your life, they're never going to feel easy. It's never going to you're never just going to wake up one day and be like, you know what? I am totally ready to make this huge life altering change. And I'm totally fine with it. I don't feel any trepidation. I don't feel any, lack mindset. No matter what, you are going to have those feelings, and having those feelings is not a sign to stop. In most cases, it's a sign to keep moving forward. And so you're not alone in having those feelings, and you don't have to go it alone. There's a lot of support. I talk to my students about having that board of directors where you have your lawyer, your accountant, your coach, your therapist, your pastor, your spiritual guide, all the things. Change can be scary, but it is always worth it.
I love that. Thank you so much for being on today's podcast. And I loved all the information you shared. It was so wonderful and it will be so beneficial to so many different people.
Thank you for having me, Patricia. I can't tell you how much I adore you
I adore
and
you
how
too.
much you have really impacted my life as well. And yeah, I don't think that I would be here without you. And maybe you feel the same about me.
I do.